Every day, we are confronted with the darker aspects of humanity. We witness the grim reality of how individuals can inflict pain on others in unfathomable ways. This unsettling truth is a sad part of our existence, one that demands our attention. As someone immersed in the world of crime, I seek to share the most shocking stories and delve into the motivations behind such acts. I'm Michael, your guide through this chilling tale. It was just past 3 a.m. in Gambier, Ohio. As the last employees of Pirates Cove locked up for the night, 20-year-old Emily Murray stood among them. A college student with big dreams and a heart full of kindness, that shift was intended to be her final farewell. Emily had made the life-changing decision to quit her job to focus on her education and future ambitions. As she stepped into the stillness of the night, her car sat just a few steps away, a beacon of normalcy. She had reassured her coworkers that she was heading straight to her dorm to rest. But somewhere between the restaurant and her destination, something ominous occurred, an event that would leave everyone in shock. By morning, Emily had vanished without a trace. Her bed lay undisturbed, her books untouched on the shelf. She had missed class, and her phone remained silent. Emily Murray had always been the kind of person to light up a room. But when she skipped a close friend's birthday party, an event she had eagerly anticipated for weeks, concern began to creep in. Initially, those who knew her believed there must be an explanation. Perhaps she simply needed some space. Yet, as the hours turned into a restless night, the initial worry morphed into an all-consuming fear. Then, weeks later, investigators stumbled upon a shocking discovery in an unexpected place. This clue would unravel everything, revealing a horrifying truth about the fateful night when Emily vanished. Born on February 19, 1980, Emily Murray grew up in the serene town of Sleepy Hollow, nestled in Westchester County, New York. The youngest of 4 siblings, she was nurtured in a privileged environment filled with love and strong family bonds. Alongside her 2 older brothers and sister, Emily's childhood was a tapestry of warmth and belonging. When she was just 2, her family relocated to Ohio, where her father became a respected academic figure. While her father took on a prestigious leadership role at a renowned scientific university, her mother devoted herself to raising their children and fostering a nurturing home. The Murray children flourished under their parents' guidance. With lofty academic aspirations, Emily excelled in her studies, particularly driven by her passion for biology and medicine. Armed with a brilliant mind and an unyielding work ethic, she consistently ranked at the top of her class. Despite the rigors of her studies, Emily carved out time for part-time work, often donating her earnings to charitable causes. Her upbringing was steeped in faith, as her parents were devout Christians. Emily was raised in a household where kindness and generosity were paramount, values instilled by her loving parents. After completing high school, she took a year off, dedicating herself to humanitarian efforts, bringing aid to communities in New Zealand. Emily Murray had arrived at Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio in 1998, after exploring the world in places like Australia, Japan, and various parts of Europe. She moved into campus housing, eager to immerse herself in the college experience. Friends and classmates admired her vibrant energy and kind-hearted nature. Emily was approachable and driven, yet she possessed a deeply introspective side, often pouring her thoughts into a personal journal. By the year 2000, she was well into her junior year, balancing rigorous coursework with volunteer work at church and evening shifts as a waitress at a local restaurant. Her packed schedule was met with remarkable grace. On the morning of November 3, 2000, Emily's dorm roommates noticed something peculiar. Her bed was empty. While it was not unusual for college students to stay out late, Emily was always considerate enough to inform her friends if she had other plans. Initially, they assumed she had stayed late at work or gone straight to class. But as they noticed her textbooks and notes still untouched on her shelf, an unsettling sense of unease began to creep in. Throughout the morning, her friends asked around, desperately hoping someone had seen her. But as the hours passed, it became painfully clear no one had. Emily had missed her classes and failed to attend a close friend's birthday party, an event she had eagerly anticipated and even helped organize. Her absence was all the more alarming. Growing increasingly concerned, Emily's friends reached out to her family. When her parents received the news, a wave of fear washed over them. Without hesitation, they made their way to Gambier, Ohio, ready to join the search for their beloved daughter. By morning, the entire Murray family, including Emily's older siblings, had arrived, determined to find her. Emily had recently attended a close friend's birthday party, even playing a key role in organizing a surprise for the celebration. Her absence became increasingly alarming, prompting her friends to reach out to her family. When her parents received the distressing news, they were engulfed by an overwhelming fear. That very night, driven by love and desperation, they made the journey to Gambier, Ohio, determined to join the search for their daughter. By morning, the entire Murray family, including Emily's older siblings, stood united in their quest to find her, their hearts heavy with worry. When word of Emily Murray's disappearance swept through the campus, it ignited a desperate search for answers. Students, faculty, and volunteers rallied together, combing the town for any trace of her. However, it was not long before another disturbing revelation surfaced. Emily's dark green Subaru, a cherished birthday gift from her father, was also missing. The Murray family wasted no time in reporting Emily's disappearance to campus security, yet their pleas were met with a disheartening indifference. Security personnel dismissed their concerns, suggesting that Emily had likely gone off with a boyfriend and would return shortly. But the Murrays understood their daughter. She would never leave without informing someone. As more than 24 hours slipped by without a word from Emily, her family realized they needed to take action. They turned to local law enforcement, only to face further disappointment. The police downplayed the situation, speculating that Emily might have taken an impromptu trip. It was only when officers searched her dorm room and discovered her ID, bank cards, and other personal belongings left untouched that the gravity of the situation began to sink in. As the days turned into a haunting silence, Emily Murray's family sought help from local law enforcement. To their dismay, the police dismissed their concerns, suggesting that Emily may have simply taken an unplanned trip. However, the situation took a darker turn when officers searched her dorm room, uncovering a chilling scene. Her ID, bank cards, and other personal belongings lay untouched, raising alarming questions about her disappearance. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that something was terribly amiss. Authorities honed in on Emily Murray's last known whereabouts. The final location where she had been seen was Pirates Cove, a bustling restaurant favored by students. On the night of November 2nd, 2000, Emily had just completed her last shift at the restaurant. She had decided to resign, overwhelmed by her demanding schedule in a bid to lighten her workload. Juggling her academics, volunteer work, and evening shifts had become increasingly challenging, prompting her to prioritize her studies. That evening, many of her friends had dropped by to support her on this significant night. As the night wound down, Emily clocked out at 2:00 a.m. However, she chose to stay an additional 30 minutes to assist with closing duties. Among the last to see her were her co-workers, Olivia, a fellow waitress, and David, the bartender. Together, they cleaned up the restaurant, finishing their tasks around 2:00 a.m. The last employee to leave was Gregory McKnight, a 24-year-old cook who secured the restaurant's doors at 3:00 a.m. By all accounts, Emily had been in high spirits that night, cheerful, friendly, and exhibiting no signs of distress. Before leaving, she informed her co-workers that she intended to head straight back to her dorm for some much-needed rest before her morning classes. There were no indications of other plans, just another late shift at work. The evening had followed her usual routine. In the wake of her disappearance, detectives meticulously searched Emily's dorm room, hoping to uncover any clues. Among her belongings, they stumbled upon a personal journal filled with deeply introspective entries. What they found was troubling. Despite her outward optimism, Emily had been waging a silent battle with depression. Known for her empathy, she often absorbed the emotional burdens of others. This struggle had left her feeling weighed down. Through her charitable work, she had witnessed the injustices and suffering in the world, and at times, the weight of it all felt insurmountable. She wrote candidly about moments of despair and exhaustion stemming from her deep compassion. While there were no references to self-harm or any drastic intentions, investigators could not entirely dismiss the unsettling possibility that Emily had chosen to walk away from her life. However, this theory faced staunch opposition from her loved ones. Family and friends adamantly argued that Emily's faith was too strong for such an act. She was a deeply religious individual. Her beliefs clashed with the notion of abandoning her future. In truth, her journal painted an entirely different picture, one infused with ambition and hope. She envisioned a life filled with love, dreaming of a future with a husband, children, and a warm, inviting home. There was no evidence suggesting she intended to disappear voluntarily. Yet, with Emily's car missing alongside her, authorities initially entertained the unsettling theory that she might have left of her own accord, seeking solitude to reflect on her life. In the wake of her recent breakup with her boyfriend and the unbearable stress of resigning from her job, Emily Murray found herself in need of a retreat from reality. This backdrop set the stage for an investigation that would inevitably lead detectives to her ex-boyfriend, Adam. Emily and Adam's relationship had spanned over a tumultuous year, characterized by moments of deep affection, interspersed with significant conflict, including multiple breakups and reconciliations. However, this time, Emily had drawn a definitive line, ending things for good, a decision Adam seemed to have accepted. Their final conversation had been amicable, but detectives could not overlook the possibility that Adam was struggling to move on. When questioned about Emily's sudden disappearance, Adam displayed visible distress, his emotions laid bare. He was cooperative, recounting his movements on the night Emily vanished. He and his roommate had visited the Pirates' Cove, only to leave around midnight and return to their dorm. Their alibi was swiftly corroborated by other students. With no evidence linking Adam to Emily's disappearance, he was quickly exonerated. The detectives, eager to pursue new leads, shifted their focus to Emily's workplace, where the pieces of the puzzle began to align. It wasn't long before they unearthed a compelling lead, a connection at work that hinted at something deeper than mere professionalism. A cook at the Pirates' Cove disclosed that the bartender, David, had harbored romantic feelings for Emily. Yet Emily had never reciprocated his affections. David had worked the same shift as Emily on the night she disappeared, prompting chilling questions to surface. Had he been waiting for her outside? Did he act on his unrequited feelings? Further questioning of David was imperative. In his statement, he admitted to having asked Emily out once, but insisted he had accepted her rejection with grace. He maintained that their interactions were strictly friendly and professional, bolstering his claims with a solid alibi. He claimed that his father had picked him up from work that night, and they promptly left town to attend a family wedding. His alibi checked out, and he too was ruled out as a suspect. Yet, the shadows of suspicion were far from dissipated. Dave Yoakum was notorious for his socially awkward and abrasive interactions with women, described by coworkers as socially inept and easily angered. His crude remarks often followed rejections, painting a troubling picture. Several waitresses had endured his unwelcome advances, and Emily was no exception. What further complicated the narrative was the timing of Yoakum's abrupt departure from the restaurant, occurring just 4 days after Emily vanished. However, the investigation took a dramatic turn when another name emerged: Dave Yoakum. Following a heated argument at work, he had been fired. Detectives swiftly found him, and he expressed shock at being labeled a suspect, eager to provide an alibi for the night of Emily's disappearance. He had attended a concert in a nearby city, a claim bolstered by multiple friends who corroborated his story, as well as ticket receipts that verified his attendance. With Yoakum cleared, the investigation faced yet another dead end, as weeks passed with no new leads surfacing. As hope began to wane in the search for Emily Murray, an unexpected lead emerged. 2 months prior to her disappearance, on October 1st, 2000, a minor car accident transpired on the outskirts of Harrison, a small town in Ohio. A man named Ronaldo Hopkins was driving home when his world collided with an unsettling twist of fate. An old Buick swerved into his lane, causing a sudden collision. Upon exiting his vehicle to assess the damage, Hopkins noticed something alarming. The trunk of the other driver's car had popped open from the impact, revealing a firearm nestled inside. Alarmed by the discovery, Hopkins promptly called the police. The driver was issued a fine, and the weapon was confiscated, yet authorities allowed him to leave. At that moment, this incident appeared to be merely a routine traffic accident. However, a dark shadow loomed over the case. On December 9th, 2000, more than a month after Emily's disappearance, that same driver faced charges for theft when law enforcement officers were dispatched to his residence, a trailer situated in a remote, desolate part of town. What they stumbled upon next sent shockwaves through the investigation. Behind the trailer sat a dark green Subaru. Running the plates revealed a shocking truth. The vehicle belonged to Emily Murray. This discovery marked a pivotal moment in the case, thrusting the trailer's occupant into the spotlight as the prime suspect. Authorities acted swiftly, determined to uncover the truth about Emily Murray's fate. As investigators delved deeper into her disappearance, all evidence converged on one chilling conclusion. The man responsible had been hiding in plain sight all along. The suspect was none other than Gregory McKnight, the cook from Pirates Cove, who had cunningly diverted attention away from himself by casting suspicion on his coworkers. Detectives wasted no time securing a warrant for McKnight's trailer. When officers arrived at the isolated property, they found the door lock broken. Stepping inside, they were immediately assaulted by an overwhelming stench, the unmistakable odor of decomposition. The source of the horrific smell was soon uncovered. At the back of the trailer, wrapped in a rug, lay the remains of a young woman. Though there was little doubt it was Emily, forensic testing would ultimately confirm the grim identity. The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head, fired at close range. Spent shell casings and blood spatter patterns indicated that the murder had indeed taken place inside the trailer. With the discovery of Emily's body, the case transitioned from a missing person investigation to a pursuit of justice for her murder. No longer was it a matter of whether something terrible had happened to her. It was now about bringing her killer to justice. Later that same day, Gregory McKnight was taken into custody. Ironically, his initial charges had nothing to do with Emily's murder. He was arrested for his alleged involvement in an armed robbery. However, when confronted with the damning evidence found in his trailer, McKnight fell silent. He declined to answer any questions, insisting on the presence of a lawyer. At that moment, investigators still lacked direct proof linking him to Emily's murder, but with her remains discovered on his property, they knew they had their suspect. When confronted by investigators, McKnight declined to answer questions, insisting on the presence of a lawyer. At that moment, authorities lacked direct evidence linking him to Emily's murder, but the discovery of her remains on his property provided a chilling certainty. They had their prime suspect. As the investigation deepened, detectives shifted their focus to Gregory McKnight's surroundings. His trailer sat in isolation, distinctly separated from the rest of the trailer park. The property bore the marks of neglect, cluttered with trash, rusted vehicles, and an overwhelming sense of disarray. During a meticulous search of the area, officers stumbled upon something peculiar. A small, overgrown well concealed by a rusted metal sheet, burdened by fallen branches. The moment they removed the cover, they sensed they had uncovered something significant. The well lay drained, and at its bottom, investigators discovered human remains. The skeletal structure suggested the victim was male, with scattered bone fragments also found nearby. The gravity of the find deepened as Julius's girlfriend was summoned to identify critical pieces of evidence pulled from the well, tattered clothing, and personal items that once belonged to him. A forensic examination of the bones revealed deep, saw-like cuts, indicating that his body had been dismembered with crude tools, painting a horrifying picture of his final moments. Forensic testing soon linked the discovered remains to an unsolved missing persons case from 6 months prior. A 20-year-old college student named Gregory Julius had vanished without a trace. Last seen in the company of none other than Gregory McKnight, the case was about to take a chilling turn. Julius's girlfriend had reported him missing after he failed to return home from a party. She recalled that Julius had mentioned attending the gathering with McKnight. When questioned at that time, McKnight claimed the two had quarreled at the party, insisting that Julius had left with others. With no physical evidence tying him to the disappearance, the investigation went cold. But now, the past was resurfacing. In his defense, McKnight recounted a story of an argument at the party, claiming that Gregory Julius had left with others. Yet, with no physical evidence tying him to the disappearance, the case began to cool. But now the investigation would reignite with a vengeance. Further investigation unveiled yet another disturbing fact. Shortly after Julius had gone missing, McKnight had illegally sold his car. The vehicle had been hastily repainted, and the license plates were replaced, an obvious attempt to obscure its identity. When police recovered the vehicle, forensic analysis uncovered traces of Julius's blood in the trunk, strongly suggesting that his body had been transported inside. Inside McKnight's trailer, authorities unearthed an axe, a shovel, and various tools, all bearing forensic evidence tying them to Julius's murder. But who was Gregory McKnight? Born on November 12, 1976, in a struggling neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, he grew up in a household marked by minimal parental supervision. He gravitated towards crime at a young age. By the time he reached 14, he had already been caught stealing. At 15, he found himself involved in a botched robbery that ended tragically in a fatality. Due to his age, McKnight received a mere 6-year sentence in a juvenile detention center. Released in 1997, he endeavored to rebuild his life. He married a woman named Catherine, and together they welcomed 2 children. At one point, McKnight managed to save enough money to purchase a trailer, but before his family could move in, the darkness of his past loomed ominously. After his release in 1997, Gregory McKnight sought to rebuild his life. He married a woman named Catherine, and together they welcomed 2 children into the world. At one point, McKnight had managed to save enough money to purchase a trailer, a symbol of hope for his family. Yet before they could move in, their lives would take a dark turn. The sinister truth began to unravel in May 2000, when Gregory McKnight committed an unspeakable crime, murdering Gregory Julius. His lifeless body was callously disposed of in a well behind his trailer. 6 months later, the horror escalated as he took the life of Emily Murray, leaving her remains to decompose within the confines of that very trailer. During the investigation, Catherine, McKnight's wife, revealed that she had long harbored suspicions about her husband's behavior. He would frequently venture to the trailer alone, adamantly refusing to allow her near it. She had assumed it was merely a hideout, a place where he engaged in illicit activities. Little did she know the truth was far more horrific. Despite the mountain of evidence against McKnight, much of it was circumstantial in the case of Julius's murder. Investigators were unable to pinpoint the exact location of the killing, leaving prosecutors powerless to pursue the death penalty in that instance. Emily's case, however, was a different story. Her remains were discovered inside McKnight's trailer, and all evidence pointed decisively to the crime having occurred there. Yet, one haunting question lingered. Why? Unlike many violent crimes, a clear motive eluded investigators. Emily had not been robbed or assaulted, and her vehicle was found abandoned behind the trailer. Even co-workers who had worked alongside Gregory McKnight testified that he treated Emily with respect. Prosecutors speculated that McKnight had lured Emily into a trap, perhaps manipulating her kindness by asking for help. Once she was inside the trailer, something ignited his violent rage. It was possible that McKnight had harbored unrequited feelings for her, and when those feelings were not reciprocated, his fury spiraled out of control. Throughout the trial, McKnight remained an enigma, choosing silence over explanation. At one point, his defense team attempted to portray Emily as a deeply troubled individual battling depression, arguing that McKnight had merely assisted her in ending her life. This assertion sparked outrage among Emily's loved ones and was ultimately dismissed by the court. In 2002, Gregory McKnight was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with charges of kidnapping and armed robbery. The court sentenced him to death, sealing his fate. For years he languished on death row, filing appeals in a desperate bid to overturn his sentence. In a shocking twist, McKnight's claims sparked outrage among Emily Murray's loved ones, leading to a courtroom battle that ultimately dismissed his assertions. By 2002, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Gregory McKnight was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, alongside charges of kidnapping and armed robbery. The court handed down a death sentence, sealing McKnight's fate. For years, he languished on death row, desperately filing appeals in a bid to overturn his sentence. However, in 2015 he made a startling request. He asked for his execution to be expedited, expressing a preference for death over the confines of prison life. Yet, this desire was fleeting. Soon after, he reversed course, reigniting his legal battles. In 2020, McKnight filed a complaint, alleging racial discrimination during his trial, claiming that the all-white jury had harbored biases against him. However, despite the review of his case, both his conviction and sentence remained intact. Today, Gregory McKnight sits on death row, awaiting the final chapter of his long and brutal legacy. In a desperate attempt to overturn his fate, Gregory McKnight claimed that the all-white jury had been biased against him. His case was reviewed, yet his conviction and sentence remained firmly intact. As the clock ticked on, Gregory McKnight continued to reside on death row, awaiting the grim conclusion of his long and brutal legacy. As the screen faded to black, a voice filled with anticipation invited the audience to explore the unknown. "Thank you for joining me," it began. "If you find yourself captivated by mysteries that span the globe, I urge you to discover our new channel, Latin Crimes. Here, we delve into the chilling true crime narratives that emerge from Latin America. Don't let the suspense pass you by. Subscribe now for more exhilarating investigations."